In the modern world, where words are weapons and constant communication is the norm, the art of silence is often misunderstood and overlooked. We are conditioned to believe that speaking up is always necessary, that our worth is measured by how much we contribute to conversations, debates, and social exchanges. However, history and philosophy suggest otherwise. Some of the most profound moments in human existence have been defined not by words, but by the absence of them. Silence is a discipline, a skill that requires as much mastery as speech. It is an active choice, not a passive retreat. It is a means of self-preservation, a tool for deep thinking, and an instrument of power. The great Stoic philosophers understood this deeply. They recognized that silence is not merely the absence of words, but a form of presence, a force that strengthens the mind and spirit. As Marcus Aurelius wisely noted, you always own the option of having no opinion. There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul. Choosing when to speak and when to remain silent is an essential practice for a fulfilled and meaningful life. Silence can be a shield against unnecessary conflict, a refuge in times of emotional turbulence, and a catalyst for profound introspection. It is not about disengagement, but about engagement on a higher level, engagement with wisdom, patience, and discernment. To truly understand the power of silence, let us explore 9 critical moments when choosing stillness over speech can lead to profound personal growth and a more fulfilling existence. 1. When being unfairly criticized. Criticism, especially when unjust, stirs deep emotions within us. Our instinct is to defend ourselves, to retaliate, to ensure our side is heard. But is that always necessary? More often than not, our words do not change the mind of our critic, but they do disturb our own peace. This is where the wisdom of silence becomes invaluable. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, if someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone. Instead of reacting with defensiveness, a Stoic pauses, reflects, and discerns whether the criticism has merit. If it does, they adjust. If it does not, they let it pass without attachment. There is a profound psychological advantage to maintaining composure in the face of unfair criticism. Silence signals emotional control, an inner strength that does not depend on external validation. It places the burden of proof on the critic while protecting our own dignity. It prevents unnecessary escalation, avoiding conflicts that are fueled by ego rather than reason. Imagine a scenario where a colleague unfairly criticizes your work in front of others. Your initial instinct might be to defend yourself. But what if you simply listened without reaction? What if you allowed their words to settle in the air without immediate retaliation? This response, or lack thereof, immediately shifts the power dynamic. The accuser is left with their own words, while you maintain your presence, unaffected and dignified. Over time, your reputation will be built not on knee-jerk reactions, but on measured, intentional responses. Epictetus advised, if anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, he was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone. This humorous yet profound perspective invites us to see criticism not as an attack, but as an opportunity for introspection. When we embrace silence, we create space for clarity, allowing us to distinguish between constructive feedback and baseless negativity. Furthermore, from a psychological standpoint, silence disarms those who seek to provoke. When we refuse to engage, we deny them the reaction they crave, forcing them to either reconsider their stance or be left in their own negativity. This is the essence of true self-mastery, responding not with impulsive words, but with deliberate silence. Silence in the face of unfair judgment is not weakness, it is strength. It communicates self-assurance, an understanding that truth needs no defense. This disciplined response cultivates a resilient mind, unshaken by fleeting opinions. Ultimately, by choosing silence over reactive speech, we reclaim control over our emotions, preserve our mental peace, and exemplify the highest form of wisdom, the ability to discern when words serve a purpose and when they are merely noise. 2. when surrounded by boastfulness. Boasting is often a symptom of insecurity, a desperate attempt to seek validation from others. People who constantly talk about their achievements, possessions, or status are often compensating for an internal void. The Stoic, however, recognizes that true confidence does not need to be announced. It is silent, firm, and unwavering. Seneca wisely remarked, "It is a great thing to know the season for speech and the season for silence." When surrounded by boastfulness, silence is not just a form of patience. It is an assertion of inner strength. By choosing not to engage in one-upmanship, we display the ultimate self-assurance, the knowledge that our worth is not measured by external accolades, but by our internal values. Imagine yourself at a social gathering where someone is loudly proclaiming their successes. The temptation to counter their boasting with your own accomplishments is strong. But what if you remained silent instead? What if, rather than fueling the cycle of self-promotion, you simply listened with a calm, knowing smile? Over time, your silence will set you apart, revealing a quiet confidence that needs no validation. The true Stoic does not seek to impress others, but to cultivate character. They understand that wisdom, not status, defines a person. Silence in the face of boastfulness is a subtle yet powerful way to reinforce this principle. It signals that we do not need the world's approval because we are secure within ourselves. Furthermore, psychological studies show that those who boast excessively often do so out of deep-seated insecurity. Responding with silence rather than engagement forces them to confront their own need for external validation. In this way, our silence becomes both a shield and a mirror, deflecting the need for superficial comparison while subtly encouraging introspection in others. By mastering the art of silent detachment, we avoid the exhausting cycle of competition and instead cultivate a life rooted in genuine self-worth. Silence, in this instance, is not merely the absence of words, but the presence of wisdom, dignity, and unshakable confidence. 3. When consumed by anger. Anger is an intense and often destructive emotion. It clouds judgment, distorts reality, and can lead to irreversible damage in relationships and personal well-being. The Stoics viewed anger as one of the most dangerous emotions, one that must be controlled rather than indulged. Seneca advised, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." When anger surges, the best response is often no response at all. Silence becomes a protective barrier, allowing time for emotions to settle and rational thought to take precedence over impulse. Imagine a situation where someone wrongs you deeply, perhaps a betrayal or an insult that cuts to your core. Your instinct might be to retaliate, to match aggression with aggression. But what if, instead, you chose stillness? What if, rather than escalating the situation, you stepped back and allowed the storm of emotions to pass before responding? The power of silence in moments of anger is twofold. It prevents regretful actions and demonstrates immense self-mastery. It sends a message that you are in control, that you are not a slave to emotion, but a master of your mind. Silence in anger is not suppression. It is a conscious decision to channel emotional energy productively. In the moments where fury beckons us to speak rashly, a simple pause can mean the difference between destruction and growth. The Stoic path is one of discipline, and silence in anger is its greatest testament. 4. When false rumors spread. Rumors are among the most insidious elements of social interaction, capable of damaging reputations and relationships with little basis in truth. In a world where misinformation spreads like wildfire, responding to every false claim can be exhausting and, often, counterproductive. The Stoic approach to rumors emphasizes self-control, patience, and trust in the power of truth. Marcus Aurelius advised, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This wisdom teaches us that we cannot control what others say about us, but we can control our response. When faced with false rumors, the impulse to immediately defend oneself is natural, but not always necessary or beneficial. Silence, in this case, becomes a tool of strength, allowing the truth to emerge in due time. Imagine a scenario where false gossip about you begins to circulate. Instinct might push you to confront every person who has heard or believed the lie. But what if you chose not to? What if you allowed your actions, your integrity, and your consistent character to speak for themselves? Silence in this case sends a clear message. It refuses to grant credibility to baseless claims and denies the rumor the energy it needs to persist. Psychologically, responding defensively to rumors often fuels the fire rather than extinguishes it. The more one protests, the more attention is drawn to the falsehood. In contrast, silence demonstrates unwavering confidence. It shows that you do not need to validate yourself through rebuttals because your life itself is the strongest counterargument. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. If a rumor has no foundation, it will wither in the absence of acknowledgement. If it persists, those who believe it without seeking truth reveal more about their own lack of discernment than about the subject of the gossip. However, silence does not mean passivity. It does not imply surrender. When appropriate, clarifications can be made through actions rather than words. Living in a way that reflects integrity and honor gradually dismantles false narratives. True credibility is not built on words alone, but on the steadfast consistency of one's actions. In a society that thrives on speculation and half-truths, the ability to remain silent in the face of false rumors is a powerful skill. It exemplifies wisdom, self-restraint, and deep-seated confidence. By mastering this discipline, we not only protect our peace but also strengthen our character, ensuring that we are defined not by the falsehoods of others but by the truth of our own conduct. 5. When coping with loss. Loss is an inevitable part of life, yet it often leaves us unprepared, vulnerable, and overwhelmed. Whether it is the passing of a loved one, the end of a relationship, or the loss of an opportunity, grief manifests in many forms. Our instinct is to fill the void with words, seeking explanations, finding solace in conversations, or expressing our sorrow aloud. However, Stoic philosophy teaches us that silence in grief is not a sign of weakness, but a pathway to deeper understanding and healing. Seneca wrote, "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." This recognition does not suggest despair, but rather an acceptance of impermanence. Life is transient, and loss is woven into its fabric. When we choose silence in mourning, we allow ourselves to fully process our emotions rather than seeking distractions. Silence provides the mental space to reflect on what was meaningful, what lessons were learned, and how we can move forward with wisdom. Consider the power of quiet remembrance. Instead of rushing to share words of sorrow or regret, what if we sat with our grief? What if we embraced the stillness, using it as an opportunity for introspection? In many spiritual traditions, silent contemplation is a crucial part of the grieving process, enabling individuals to reconnect with their inner selves and find peace amid sorrow. Psychologically, silence helps us acknowledge our emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Speaking too soon or too often about our grief can sometimes prevent us from fully experiencing it. By retreating into quietude, we can observe our thoughts and emotions with clarity, allowing them to pass naturally rather than becoming consumed by them. Furthermore, silence in grief can be an act of respect, both for the departed and for ourselves. In a world that often demands immediate responses, taking the time to sit in stillness signals a deep reverence for the weight of our emotions. It allows us to process loss on our terms, rather than being rushed into verbal expressions that may not yet be fully formed. Yet, silence does not mean isolation. It does not mean shutting ourselves off from support. Instead, it is about choosing when and how to speak. There is immense power in quiet reflection before sharing our thoughts with others. The pause created by silence gives us the chance to discern whether our words will bring comfort or if they are merely an attempt to fill the void. By embracing silence in the face of loss, we cultivate resilience. We honor our emotions without being consumed by them, and we develop a deeper appreciation for the fleeting nature of life. As the Stoics remind us, what matters is not the length of our time with someone or something, but the depth of meaning it carried. In silence, we can honor that meaning, allowing it to shape us without defining our suffering. Ultimately, silence in grief is a powerful tool, not to suppress emotion, but to allow it space to be fully felt and understood. In stillness, we find the wisdom to accept what we cannot change, the strength to continue forward, and the grace to remember without being trapped in sorrow. 6. When encountering ignorance. Ignorance is an unfortunate but inevitable part of human interactions. Whether it manifests as misinformation, prejudice, or an unwillingness to understand, encountering ignorance can be deeply frustrating. Our natural reaction is often to correct, to argue, or to enlighten. However, Stoicism teaches that wisdom is knowing when silence is more effective than words. Marcus Aurelius advised, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." This reminds us that engaging in futile debates with those who are unwilling to listen serves no real purpose. Instead, silence allows us to conserve our energy and maintain our inner peace. Consider a conversation where someone spreads falsehoods or clings to irrational beliefs. The impulse to correct them is strong. But what if instead you chose silence? By not engaging, you avoid unnecessary conflict and emotional exhaustion. This does not mean that we should never educate or share knowledge, but rather that we should choose our battles wisely. If the other party is not open to dialogue, silence can be the most powerful response. Psychologically, arguing with ignorance often results in greater resistance. People tend to become more entrenched in their beliefs when confronted aggressively. Silence, however, creates a space of reflection. Without immediate opposition, some individuals may start to question their own assumptions over time. From a philosophical standpoint, choosing silence in the face of ignorance is also an act of self-discipline. It demonstrates mastery over one's emotions, preventing frustration from taking hold. Instead of allowing ignorance to provoke us, we remain steadfast in our composure. Furthermore, silence in such moments is an opportunity to lead by example. Actions often speak louder than words. A life lived with wisdom and integrity is the best counterargument to ignorance. Rather than engaging in fruitless discussions, embody the principles you wish to see reflected in others. Ultimately, silence in the presence of ignorance is not an act of surrender but of strength. It protects our peace, maintains our dignity, and ensures that our words, when we do choose to speak, carry real impact. By embracing stillness in these moments, we elevate ourselves beyond meaningless disputes and cultivate a life of wisdom, patience, and profound insight. 7. When facing manipulation. Manipulation is one of the most insidious forms of interaction. It is a calculated attempt to influence, deceive, or control another person for self-serving purposes. Whether it comes in the form of guilt-tripping, gaslighting, or subtle coercion, manipulation can distort our perception, erode our confidence, and lead us away from our core values. Recognizing it is the first step, but knowing how to respond is even more critical. This is where silence becomes a powerful defense mechanism. When confronted with manipulation, the instinctive reaction is often to defend oneself, to explain, or to retaliate. However, engaging in this way can play directly into the manipulator's hands. Their power lies in provoking an emotional response, whether it be guilt, fear, or frustration. The more energy we invest in defending ourselves, the more control they maintain over the situation. Seneca wisely advised, "He who does not prevent a crime when he can, encourages it." The same can be said of manipulation. If we allow ourselves to be drawn into its game, we are indirectly reinforcing it. Instead of reacting, the Stoic approach is to remain silent, composed, and observant. Silence disrupts the manipulator's strategy, denying them the emotional leverage they seek. Psychologically, silence creates a void that manipulative individuals struggle to navigate. Their tactics rely on engagement, whether through argument, emotional appeals, or persuasion. When met with stillness, they often falter, revealing their true motives. A well-timed silence can force them to reconsider their approach or abandon their efforts altogether. Beyond disarming manipulation, silence allows us the necessary space to reflect and respond with wisdom. It prevents us from making hasty decisions based on emotion, instead giving us the clarity to discern the situation objectively. Are their words aligned with reality? Or are they distorting the truth for personal gain? Are they acting in our best interest, or merely seeking to benefit themselves? These insights become clearer when we resist the urge to engage immediately. Moreover, silence in the face of manipulation is not about passivity. It is about taking control of the interaction on our terms. It is about setting boundaries without the need for excessive explanation or justification. By refusing to react, we reclaim our autonomy, asserting our self-respect without unnecessary confrontation. The wisdom of Stoicism teaches us that true power lies in controlling our own responses, rather than allowing others to dictate them. When manipulation arises, choosing silence over reaction can be the strongest stance we take. It allows us to break free from toxic cycles, protect our mental well-being, and maintain the integrity of our own thoughts and actions. Ultimately, silence in the face of manipulation is an act of self-mastery. It is a declaration that we refuse to be swayed by deceit or coercion. It is a reminder that true strength does not come from how loudly we defend ourselves, but from how resolutely we hold our ground in quiet confidence. 8. When dealing with betrayal. Betrayal is one of the most painful experiences a person can endure. Whether it comes from a friend, a partner, or a trusted colleague, the realization that someone we placed our faith in has acted against us can be deeply unsettling. The emotional turmoil that follows can lead us to anger, sadness, and an overwhelming desire for retribution. However, the Stoic approach teaches that silence in the face of betrayal is often the most powerful and dignified response. Seneca once wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Betrayal, painful as it may be, is an opportunity for growth, for refinement of character. Rather than reacting impulsively, confronting the betrayer, demanding explanations, or seeking revenge, the wise individual steps back into silence, allowing emotions to settle and reason to take control. Silence in the aftermath of betrayal serves multiple purposes. First, it prevents us from acting in ways we may later regret. Emotional responses often lead to further damage, compounding the original pain. By embracing silence, we give ourselves the space needed to assess the situation with clarity and wisdom. Psychologically, silence robs the betrayer of the reaction they might expect or even desire. Those who betray often seek to justify their actions through conflict, but by refusing to engage, we deny them that validation. Our silence communicates that our worth is not dependent on their actions, and that their betrayal does not define our sense of self. Furthermore, silence fosters introspection. Rather than immediately placing all the blame on the betrayer, we can use the moment to reflect on what led to the situation. Were there warning signs we ignored? Did we place our trust too freely? This is not about self-blame, but about learning, about developing greater discernment for future relationships. From a philosophical perspective, silence in the face of betrayal aligns with the Stoic principle of controlling what we can. We cannot control the actions of others, but we can control our response. By choosing silence, we demonstrate emotional resilience and self-mastery, refusing to let external events dictate our inner peace. Ultimately, silence allows us to move forward without being consumed by resentment. It enables healing on our own terms, without feeding the cycle of hurt. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In choosing silence, we reclaim our power and emerge stronger than before. 9. When preparing for a critical decision. In moments where life demands an important decision, silence is often the most valuable ally. Whether it is a career choice, a relationship commitment, or a moral dilemma, the ability to pause and reflect before acting ensures that our choices align with our deepest values and principles. Seneca wisely said, "Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart." This sentiment can be extended to decision-making, where a mind unclouded by haste and external pressure leads to choices made with gratitude and wisdom rather than fear or impulse. When facing a significant crossroads, Our initial instinct might be to seek external validation, to consult many voices, or to react quickly under pressure. However, true wisdom is cultivated in solitude. Silence provides the necessary space to disconnect from the noise of the world and reconnect with our inner compass. Psychologically, silence enhances cognitive clarity. It prevents reactionary decision-making and allows us to process all relevant factors with a balanced perspective. Neuroscientific studies have shown that a quiet mind is more adept at weighing long-term consequences rather than falling prey to short-term gratification. By choosing silence before making a pivotal decision, we cultivate discernment, patience, and emotional intelligence. Philosophically, silence is an exercise in self-trust. The Stoics teach us that the answers we seek are often found within. When we allow ourselves the grace of silence, we strengthen our intuition and gain the confidence to make decisions that reflect our true priorities rather than external expectations. Additionally, silence in decision-making fosters a sense of responsibility. It eliminates the impulse to blame external factors or people for the outcomes of our choices. By sitting with our thoughts and embracing stillness, we become fully accountable for the direction of our lives, ensuring that every step we take is intentional and aligned with our values. Ultimately, silence before a critical decision is an act of empowerment. It protects us from being swayed by fleeting emotions or external pressures, allowing us to choose from a place of wisdom rather than impulse. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. In stillness, we find clarity. In silence, we make choices that shape our destiny with purpose and strength. Conclusion: the wisdom of silence. The ability to embrace silence is not a retreat from life, but an elevation of it. In a world filled with noise, distraction, and relentless communication, cultivating the power of stillness is a form of strength and wisdom. Each of the 9 moments explored in this discussion reveals how silence can serve as a tool for resilience, clarity, and self-mastery. Silence is not a sign of weakness, nor is it an avoidance of responsibility. Instead, it is an active choice, one that allows us to think deeply, act wisely, and engage with the world on our own terms. Whether we are facing criticism, betrayal, or an important decision, silence grants us the space to respond with intention rather than impulse. The great Stoic philosophers, from Marcus Aurelius to Seneca, understood that true power lies not in endless words, but in the ability to remain composed and deliberate. By mastering the art of silence, we cultivate a profound inner peace that allows us to navigate life with confidence and wisdom. If you found this exploration of silence insightful and valuable, we invite you to continue the journey with us. Subscribe to Practical Philosophy, where we delve into Stoicism, mindfulness, and timeless wisdom to help you lead a more thoughtful and empowered life. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Practical Philosophy, for more deep insights on self-mastery, resilience, and personal growth. If you've ever experienced a moment where silence changed the course of your actions, we'd love to hear about it. Share your thoughts in the comments below and join the discussion on the power of silence. Thank you for being part of this journey toward wisdom and self-discovery. Until next time, embrace the quiet and let it guide you to deeper understanding.